My name is Heidari. I'm in product management in Qualcomm San Diego group. Thank you for inviting me to these sessions. And I also wanted to congratulate the IMTC for the 20th anniversary. My discussions is on a topic that to some extent is known to audience, and then part of it is perhaps an area that is not as much known. I'm referring to voice over LTE versus voice over mobile broadband. And I hope that within these few slides that I have put together for you, we'll be able to resolve some of these misunderstanding between the two terminology used, and to some extent looking at to this sort of a voice-related, more of a specific mobile voice-related services, seeing from an operator's perspective rather than from an apps developer. That was a discussion earlier as part of the WebRTC. I do have an agenda, although I'm not sure how closely I'm going to be following that. So I will start with introducing what I believe is a trend in communication and voice services. And then I'll discuss briefly about the effect of having all IP type of network, how that influences this particular trend, and more of a wireless trend. And then we move into identifying some of the key elements and features that are being introduced as part of what we call enhanced voice services. In fact, that terminology is a standard codec that is ongoing in 3GPP called EVS. I will not go into detail of describing the codec per se, because the follow-up speakers will discuss that in more detail with you. I'll talk a little bit about the challenges from VoLTE and voice over mobile broadband. And again, looking at this problem mainly from the operator's view. Again, I wanted to clarify that because I don't work for the operators, but we are, operators are not our customers, but they actually today, especially in North America, pretty much all the operators are subsidizing the telephones, and from that perspective, they are kind of indirect operators for Qualcomm. I will also try to give you a little bit of an overview from Qualcomm, if you're not familiar with the company, some of the technologies that we are providing. The slides is a little bit of a modem-centric because, as you know, we are a modem company, although we are doing many other things other than modem. And then at closure, I will talk a little bit about HD Voice. That's one of the key initiatives that I'm promoting in Qualcomm. And we'll discuss some of the technologies that is needed to get a very reliable HD Voice services. So to start with, I think we are pretty much familiar with this sort of evolution of the technology. I'm sure some of you guys probably even remember the good old the old technology that we had. And if you look at this in the time axis, in the time domain, you will see that the actual very first phone that was introduced in 1890s, it took almost 100 years for us to have the first mobile device. And when the first mobile came out into the picture in early 90s, there was a number of issues there that was, the design was biased toward the wireline fixed network. In one particular case was the voice. I guess at the time when the infrastructure vendors were designing this network, they didn't realize that there would be a time that 80–90% of the calls would be mobile to mobile. At the time, it was only 10–20%. So they terminated the call onto the radio rather than having the termination point to be at the endpoints. And from that perspective, they created a blockage, if you will, in regard to the conversational communication services. Did not give an opportunity for a differentiation to the mobile device. Whereas, the mobile, obviously, because of the not being part of a wireline fixed network, there is no limitation in terms of the performance of the call. More specifically, I'm talking about the voice codec and the bandwidth associated to that call. Effectively, on a mobile-to-mobile, as you will see later, you can create a super wideband quality call between two devices without any bottleneck whatsoever. So there really nothing has happened with that 100 years of time that passed by for the telecommunication. And of course, there was a quick migrations from 90s down to the present. Devices become more of a data-centric, as you can see, and SMS, MMS was introduced, and then when we become all IP-centric type of devices, as we know them today as a smartphone, then the opportunity was open for many of the over-the-top players to be able to offer services. And interesting enough is that this is sort of what we were just discussing, that the browsers were never involved into that. Of course, with the WebRTC now we have the opportunity to even stay in the browser and establish the code, which is, by the way, I'm totally in favor of it. It's just that, like I said, it's a little bit of an issue that has to be resolved between understanding between the cellular operators, which they own the mobile voice services today, versus what the apps or third-party or over-the-top players that they would like to own it. And as long as we can solve that issue, I have no problem with it from that perspective. And as you can see, I'm actually not biased on any of those. And in fact, if you go to the Android shop, there's over 1,000 over-the-top players today that they would like to get their client into the picture. A little bit too much word in this slide, but I just wanted to point to some of the key elements that the end users, as well as myself, are interested to have in the voice call. So as you know, the new generations are coming with this gaming, and the gaming comes with their chatting, and the chatting and the gaming associated with high quality voice and audio. So clearly, especially the new generations are no longer are willing to use what we call, old circuit switch, voice quality, as was referred to as a toll quality, more of a band-limited low quality voice. And they, not only that, they obviously want some personalizations and customization as part of their solution. There is clearly a trend moving toward that, and I think that's part of the, my presentation, that no doubt that high definition voice is going to happen, is already happening in circuit switch, and it would happen and be associated with the RCS rich call suite. You will have even a better and more of a robustness and quality in your voice services. And I also identify a couple of other areas, including the conference call, and not to mention the voice UI, where the higher bandwidth codecs will give you more clarity in terms of your client for your speech recognition service to recognize the voice. Again, in the sort of the same trend of conversational services, I don't think anyone would disagree with me that we are seeing this trend of the broadband fixed PSTN backhaul moving away as time goes on, and it's replaced with all IP. And as a part of all IP is more of an enterprise residential as a telco pushing first, and then of course the mobile coming into the picture. And that trend is going to continue to the fact that within the next 5 to 10 years, you probably would not see any more people subscribing to a broadband fixed, all the network subscription. And some of the latest, industry analysis are predicting that today only 1 out of 3 people would be getting a new, landline type of services. And usually when you go to a rural area where there is no infrastructure for some of these broadband fixed telco companies, you see even more of a penetration of a mobile handset there. And somewhere from age 20 to 29, 30 years, about 50–60% of those users are preferring to use mobile rather than having a telephone at home. I do have a video that I thought maybe it's good to kind of show it to you. There's quite a number of these videos on Qualcomm website. In this particular one, it's more of a, gives me to, a kind of a good gateway to my next slide. So if you don't mind to play that. Okay, thank you very much. One of the reasons I like this particular video because it does have the world map in there and is pointing to the penetration of the LTE network to the extent that I believe this particular map that I was able to get from the GSMA is pointing to the same trend happening. In fact, this is as of, I think, a couple of months ago that, as you can see, 456 operators in 134 countries are investing in LTE, and out of that, about 406 operators have already committed. China in particular is one that has not been shown in here to be committed, and we are working very closely with China. In fact, there is a VoLTE trial is going on there as we speak, and hopefully in 2014 timeline, China will also add and becomes red in this map with their LTE, VoLTE type of a commercial network. And that's obviously a major opportunity for us as well as others who are playing in this space. I think one thing also is being pointed in here on the slide that there's two flavors of LTE, as you're familiar with, the TDD and FDD. And TDD is another sort of a technology that China, mobile in particular, is leading in this area, and I think there's obviously opportunity to get a little bit more than I believe it's a 21 network now to be supported later. Sort of staying on the LTE trend, I also wanted to discuss some of the services that are more applicable to my presentation slide. I think there's no argument that the video telephony is one of the more appealing service on the LTE. I think to some extent I understand that. I think voice is getting older. People are taking it for granted. But when you are talking about voice over LTE, that is the hardest part of the solution problem to solve. Voice requires real-time, very close to near to real-time services. And for any packet-based services, this is a nightmare that they don't necessarily want to sign up. And of course, for an operator to go all LTE, this is one of the biggest challenges that they have to solve, and most of them, they try to address that today. Although, as you see, the trend of moving out of the circuit switch, as you notice on the lower part of the slide, is pointing that it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take another decade or even longer for that transition to totally happen. It's more shown in this particular slide. As you can see, the previous access points technologies that we've had, starting with AMPS to 1G to a 2G with GSM, and then 3G to the 4G. You notice there is this trend of having about 20 years to the peak of that technology in terms of a terminal and growth of that particular access point. And if you look at the 3G, for example, with the WCDMA, the peak of that with the HSPA, HSPA Plus is not going to happen until 2020. And by that is maybe more of a time that you would see that transition to a LTE network. And sort of from what I'm describing in here, moving into the voice services in particular, I also believe that there is going to be this trend within time, as I said, moving from a circuit switch to the voice over IP packet switch services within the next 7 to 10 years. And that's the change that we will see on the channel bearer happening. Along with that, of course, as we've been discussing as part of the WebRTC discussion earlier as well, there's going to be the similar trend happening into the ecosystem of the access points for the services, meaning that within the time there would be a handoff from operators to the web portal type of connectivities. So, when you think about all that landscape of scenarios as I was describing to you, there is this issue that I brought up earlier regarding who really owns voice. If you look at it on the left side, the circuit switch voice, this technology was obviously offered by the operators. They own the TAPI, the telephone API. They provided a very reliable type of services. They had the interoperabilities all figured out because they follow the standards codec solution. And this is obviously something that happened for the past 20 years. But then as we've witnessed within the past 5-6 years, that these over-the-top players also want to have part of that market. They're pushing with their own solution coming in. The issue with them is, of course, to some extent, reliability and connectivity, maybe more so about the mobile connectivity when you are moving. You know, if you have a stationary, then maybe the solutions are very reliable. But when you have a mobility, especially with the handoff situation, and interoperability becomes a nightmare for them because there's so many of them. Most of them don't talk with each other, and becomes a bit of a frustrating situation for the end users. So I think that with these two push coming with the IMS and RCS type of voice services, we hopefully will see a conversion happening, and that conversion is most likely would be a carrier-graded type of voice services. It would have a solution of both trends, coming from the personalization aspects with the RCS-related services, and with the reliability of IMS and the SIP-SDP negotiation, and the quality of service that will be provided. Actually, one thing that is clear from this slide that I forgot to mention is that if an operator wants to create that uniformity and consistency in the voice quality, he needs to have a system, a voice type of a services that is agnostic to his access points. And now, if an operator owns a 2G, 3G network and has some Wi-Fi as well, he needs a solution that will be more of a ubiquitous across all these access points. And that's what it brings me to this next slide, which I'm sure you're familiar with, this voice over mobile broadband. The voice over mobile broadband, as I just described, is an alternative to what we know today as the voice packet services that allows the operators to consolidate and provide a better connectivity with the quality of service and to some extent be access agnostic. And this trend is going to, it's not happening yet to that larger scale because of all the momentum and, sort of a hype about the LTE. But when the dust settles, this is where the operators will have to move. They would need to have a solution that can better utilize their existing infrastructure and create a handoff situation and scenarios to their 4G network. And as you can see at the bottom, this is not as much of a lucrative business, but the estimate is by 2016, there would be over $100 billion revenue generated from voice over mobile broadband, mainly from the operators. And this particular revenue, as we'll see later, is about a quarter of what overall voice revenue will be. Some of the key benefits of the voice over mobile broadband, again, looking at this from the operator's perspective, it does provide you that spectral bandwidth efficiency. And the spectral bandwidth efficiency is obviously one is given to them via their standard low bit rate codecs that they have today, and that evolution will continue. But it's more of also a handoff situations for them when they have access, overloaded on their cellular. They can simply control that through the Wi-Fi connectivity. Another aspect which is quite interesting is this cost of their operational, their cost of operation and control of the operation. When you're looking at the LTE or the packet switch HSPA Plus, it's quite lower for 1 gigabytes of data services with respect to their 3G and 2G network. One of the views that I have in here, which to some extent I agree, this is from the industry, that I agree that the timelines seem to be very viable, is if you look at it from the bottom to top, you notice that from the LTE or voice over mobile broadband, which includes the voice over LTE and voice over HSPA and Wi-Fi, The lead operator that moved into this space was operators who had CDMA network. And when you think about that, one of the reasons they move in that direction, because our CDMA, if you're familiar with that access, does not allow you simultaneous voice data. And from that perspective, obviously had a clause that had to be improved in more of a competitive aspects of it. And that is why they wanted to go to LTE. And if you look at the leaders in these LTE initiatives were Verizon and the Korea. These are the operators who had CDMA. But the issue with them was that because of the limitation of the circuit switch fallback, they had to, or we had to provide them engines that supports a dual radio, the RVCC. And from a dual radio perspective, the terminal was the one who got the bottom end of the stick, because the power consumption of having dual radio running simultaneously was quite high. So that trend has already happened, and it is going to be handing over to what we call SRVCC network. The SRVCC initially happened on a very limited market, but as we are going in 2014, many of the operators who have or are planning to deploy voice over LTE, they will also will have this capability built into their network. And then, as you see on the top, voice over Wi-Fi, as I mentioned earlier, is part of this whole industry trend as well. We're moving forward. I was given I only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to move pretty quick on some of the follow-up slides. Again, as you will see later on this slide, comparing the top to the bottom, you notice that the number of the smartphones are growing, and we are getting to about, in 2013, somewhere around 3 billion devices is being forecasted that they're going toward the smartphone. And I think this is all good for the whole industry trend, because with the packet-based improvements, voice over LTE will happen next. On the bottom, as you also notice, that there is the minutes of use per region, and I did a little calculation. That comes to about 20 minutes per day usage of a voice, and I think that's probably very generally what's happening today. Maybe in North America, less of that. When it comes to the revenue, as I was saying earlier, voice obviously was one of the key factors for the operators for many years. Somewhere around $400 billion was what it was forecasted. That trend is moving slightly lower as forecasted, but with the enhanced voice services, one hopes that it will at least maintain its growth. And this is where the whole voice over LTE with the wideband, super wideband trend is moving to. I think I'm going to skip this. It's basically showing that the operators are still into this model with their own revenue, whether or from the telco back to the cellular with the smartphones and the tablets. They maintain their revenue, monthly revenue. I think, again, very quickly comments on this is that when it comes to quality of service and quality of experience to some extent, the delay is one of the key points that the end users will perceive. One of the issues that what I was against the earlier discussion was the transcoding aspects. The transcoding not only degrades the voice quality, but also increases the delay. Okay, so I have only 1 minute. Again, I think from the Qualcomm perspective, we are, as you know, we are playing in all of this space. With our earlier, recent acquisition of Taurus, we are now having a whole profile of products from smartphones to tablets and to smart TVs and using even the landline communication. Very quickly, again, this is our modem technology roadmap. As you can see, it's quite crowded with multiple technologies, starting from a Wi-Fi to a HSPA to a LTE network with a different throughput. I think I'm going to probably stop here. Thank you.